The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 seconds, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Andreas Antonopoulos, author of the book, Mastering Bitcoin.
Hello.
Blake Anderson from Facebook.com/GotBlake.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on the 100th episode.
Theo Goodman from Haas Online.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching 100. What's up?
Gabriel D. Vine from Future Rant.
Hello, world. Hello, prosperity.
Derek J. Freeman from Flaming Freedom.
Happy 100th.
Tone Vase from Brave New Coin.
Hi everyone, coming to you from Odessa, Ukraine at the BIP 001 event for the Halvening.
Will Penguin from Airbits. Still muted.
Hey everybody.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. This week we're celebrating episode 100 with yet another episode. Issue 1, Bitcoin Halvening. The Bitcoin block reward will cut in half this weekend, meaning that the Bitcoin miners will now be paid 12.5 Bitcoin for every block, rather than the previous 25. The constant reduction of supply is what makes Bitcoin a deflationary currency, meaning that the value you hold in Bitcoin is always increasing in the long run, because there's less currency being produced. This is the opposite of an inflationary system like the US dollar, where the amount of currency is constantly being increased, and the longer you hold it, the less value you have. Not too long after the last Bitcoin halvening, the Bitcoin price began to skyrocket, but recently the price dipped almost to 610. Andreas Antonopoulos, your thoughts on the second Bitcoin halvening?
Well, it's a time to celebrate another successful 4 years and to open the next 4-year period. Other than that, really, no one can predict what happens next. My expectation is nothing much happens. Nothing really changes, except we'll see a lot of volatility leading up to it and a lot of volatility coming out of it. I think it's wrong to speculate that the price will increase or decrease at this point, but it will be all over the place for the next couple of weeks.
Here's to another 4 years of Bitcoin not dying. Blake Anderson.
Well, I think it's very interesting, the activity that's leading up to the halvening. I mean, as you know, there's going to be a supply decrease, and Bitcoin is interesting because it's not like a stock. It's more kind of almost like a commodity. It is the digitized money or digital storage of value that you're trading instead of future earnings in a company or something like that. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, the run-up has become almost kind of a bull graveyard for those that are trading on short horizons. They're getting eaten up by a lot of people that either had it priced in or are looking to do swing trading. I think that after the halvening, what's going to happen is the inelastic nature of Bitcoin is going to catch up with the situation. So when you have a commodity or a resource like gold or like silver, when it goes way up in value, it becomes worth it to run mining operations, which were not worth it before. So the supply of that thing goes up. That cannot happen with digital storage of value as far as Bitcoin is concerned. So that inelastic relationship that the supply is going to have towards the demand is going to be an interesting thing that I think will bump the price up. People knowing that that's going to happen but not knowing when, I think, are getting mixed signals, and we're seeing a lot of tumultuous trades going on up to that point. But I think that knowing in your mind that there's a macro factor that's going to influence objectively what's going on, and then investing on a long term, I think that you should be fine doing that.
Imagine if half the gold mines suddenly turned off tomorrow and stopped production. While we don't want to encourage speculation, I do believe the price is going up. Theo Goodman.
I think that it's going to be interesting to watch the hash rate as the halvening happens and just see if it stays the same. There's a lot of discussion about that, or some people think some miners are going to shut down. Some people think the hash rate's going to go up or down or change drastically. I think it'll probably stay around the same or get higher, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that too.
Gabriel D. Vine.
Well, I just drew a little chart here to describe an idea that I had. So basically, I think the miners have been actually smoothing out the amount of Bitcoin that they've been holding. And as you can see here, it's transitioning from 25 to 12.5. But I don't believe that the miners are just selling all their coin all the time and just flooding the market. I think that they've been holding on to it and gradually decreasing so that they can smooth over this halvening. And that would mean that they've been tightening for X amount of months, possibly a year, possibly 6 months, 3 months. And that means that right now all of them are probably already averaging 18.75 Bitcoin per block, as far as how much they're letting out onto the market, and they're going to be smoothing back, continuing down forever, however long, for the next few months into 12.5. So I think we're going to see continued upward movement along with the volatility, as Andreas.
Derek J. Freeman.
What excites me the most about the halvening is how money can have these unique characteristics today. I've never heard of this happening before in the history of money. It's because it's decentralized and anyone can participate that we're even talking about what's going to happen afterwards. Otherwise, it would be like, what's the Fed going to say? And what are they going to control, centrally plan for our economy? And instead, it's a group of people that anyone can participate or run a miner. Everyone can have an input in this. And more people are even asking me about Bitcoin. What's this halvening thing? What does it mean? And it gives an opportunity to explain one of the most important ways how Bitcoin is different from the money that most people use, fiat money, which is, of course, that it has a limited supply, and the supply being limited is part of what gives its value. So this is a great opportunity to explain Bitcoin to new people and explain some of the unique characteristics that make it good money.
It's a good point, Derek. I'm glad that the president of Bitcoin won't be putting out a hard fork to roll back the halvening. Tone Vase.
Okay, so I have to second what Gabriel said. I've been saying that for over 9 months, that smart miners are going to ration what they're selling now in order to have a much smoother operation after the halvening. It also makes total sense that we had so much hashing power go online the last 6 months because everyone is in a battle to get those last higher rewards per block. It also, that coupled with the supply constraint onto the market, because I do think that they've been selling less, plus all of the hype, just fear of missing out on the halvening. Like you said, what happened with the price last year, it started to go up fairly soon after. Between all that, it made sense that it went up. I also said that after the halvening, I expect the price to dip a little bit, kind of like buy the rumor, sell the news. And then we're, after a little bump, after a little fall, after the halvening, we should start to go back up again fairly quickly. That's been my view the last 9 months, and that's not going to change. So I'm sticking with that as well.
And you're sticking to it. Will Pangman.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, the price dynamics over the past couple months. The halvening was coming upon us and the price was still around the 300 range. It'd be concerning, I think, for a lot of us longtime Bitcoin advocates. And so yeah, it's great that I think people anticipate the supply decrease with the bull run that we've had this year so far. And as far as predictions, last time the halvening happened, not much happened the day or week before, the week after. It took, a few weeks, like 6 to 12 weeks for action to really get going, Jackson. And boy, did it ever, in like March of 2013. And then again, later that year as well. I think we're going to see a mirror of that. We've seen so many patterns repeat in Bitcoin that are really, really compelling patterns. And I expect we may see vacillation between this range of like 600 to 700 or something, maybe tighter range than that, before we reach 1,000, maybe some resistance around 1,000, and I think we'll get to 2,000, and people will talk about how quickly that happened. Much like people talked a few weeks ago how quickly Bitcoin blazed through the 500s. So I'm excited. Supply contractions are in this case, a good thing. And yeah, so Vic, we're going to learn. We've learned a lot of lessons in the last 7.5 years, and I think people are putting these lessons to work. And we're seeing lots of innovation, lots of development related to money and otherwise around Bitcoin, and not just like these other meta protocols, but around Bitcoin itself. People are kind of coming back to that realization after maybe getting a little dose of the Andreas Antonopoulos roadshow and learning a thing or two. So that's good to see. I think the Halvening brings attention back to Bitcoin and away from some of these other experimental protocols that are less battle tested.
I had a good question really quick for Gabe and I guess Tony and Theo. I mean, just as far as anybody that's talking about the miners not liquidating their coins right away, I mean, would it be accurate to say, like, Tabasco hot sauce, they make it, it's aged in an oak barrel for a certain amount of time, and then it's more valuable, and then they sell it. Like, you don't want to liquidate your earnings right away. But I'm trying to figure out, your guys' conclusion was that as that happens, is that liquidation of those funds going to contribute to a deflationary spiral and drive the price up later? Or I guess that my question is, what is your conclusion about the nature of those aged coins?
I'll take that one. No, it's basically just basic operations. I mean, I have a small business as well, and the most important thing is consistency. So my view has been miners, they know what their expenses are, and they know probabilistically what their revenues are, and they know that revenue is going to be cut in half, but their expenses are not going to be cut in half. So you want to just smooth out your operation so that you're as predictable as possible.
Yep, I wanted to just chime in too on that point. I learned recently from some people who are close to the large Chinese mining operations, Ethereum and Bitcoin, and especially in the case of Bitcoin, it's apparent to.
I guess my question was more around the lines of what impact do you think that information is going to have on the Halvening? Like, if we bring it back to the question.
I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, as far the effect on the Halvening is basically it's spreading out its effect rather than having it smash into the short area. They're increasing the length of that window to 18 months or 9 months or whatever it is, and probably each mining company is doing it to whatever amount that they can, whatever they're able to, and the less room they have, the more sudden it's going to be and the less of a transition there's going to have. So I'm assuming that there will be a bit of an extreme, relatively extreme move within a few weeks, but I think that it's going to take months to play out, just like last time.
Okay, understood.
Also, hashing power might take a little bit of a dip. I do think that some miners will drop out. This is like their last chance to stay relevant. They might do a cost-benefits analysis, and they may not want to spend the money on electricity, so I am expecting some miners to kill operations.
I'd like to also go back to Will's point. Chris Ellis often says that it takes 24 hours for the market to really absorb the news, so you have to wait for at least 24 hours for the news to pass. I think it's even further with the Halvening. It might take a week, it might take 2 weeks for everyone in the world into Bitcoin to really understand what's happening. A lot of people who own Bitcoin, even a lot of Bitcoin, don't understand the Halvening, aren't prepared for it, haven't been through one before, and I think they're going to be surprised and perhaps pleasantly surprised by the effects of the Halvening. But we'll have to wait and see a longer period to see how the market turns out. Moving on to the exit question, forced prediction. What is the Bitcoin price Monday morning after the Halvening? Andreas Antonopoulos.
It will remain stable at 1,000 millibits per Bitcoin.
Blake Anderson.
That is a good question. Andreas, did you have anything to say about our wrap up before? I noticed that you unmuted yourself for a moment, and now I'm curious. It's like a splinter in my mind.
I'm just thinking that I'm going to have to spend the next several months trying to explain to newbies that no, not only are they not mined from the earth, but they are in fact not aged in Tabasco casks for a while, because now I've got to deal with two metaphors that are really confusing. So thanks for that, Blake.
It'll make them spicier Bitcoins.
Oh, spicy Bitcoins. So I think that the price of Bitcoins will be, spicy next week.
Theo Goodman.
The price on Monday will be either below 585.25 or above 755.55.
Very
And I
accurate
think that,
predictions.
yeah, and I think that we're going to have, really high premiums for pre-halvening virgin blocks.
Gabriel D. Vine.
My predictions have been pretty inaccurate, as have Tones, I might point out, lately, so I'm just going to randomly throw out 718.
Derek J. Freeman.
I assume we're playing Price is Right style, so I'm going to say 719.
Tone Vase.
Yeah, it's funny. I was gonna say the same thing, Gabe. You keep beating me to it. This entire question. Yeah, we did this 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and we were very, very wrong. I thought the FOMO would take over and we would be at near 1,000 by now. We're clearly not. I'm gonna go lower. I'm gonna say we'll be in the low 600s, maybe in the upper 500s. I think there'll be a little bit of a sell-off.
And now all the bears are going to shout at you from the graveyard.
Dark, dark. Will Pangman.
609.
And I'm going to go with
619. 619.
619. And I'm going to go with a nice round 800 because why not? I have no idea. Moving on to the next question. Issue 2. Vogogo closing down. Coinbase shuts off Canada. Bitcoin service provider Vogogo is ending their payment service in Canada, citing a lack of interest and a lack of profits. This move leaves Coinbase without a payment processor for Canada, temporarily forced to leave the country. Other Bitcoin exchanges like Kraken and Quadriga X were unaffected by the closure. Blake Anderson, no more Bitcoin in Canada, or just another speed bump on the road to total Bitcoin adoption?
Well, it's tough. It's tough to compete when Bitcoin has its own payment system integrated into it, and I know that it has to communicate with other payment systems, and that there's work that needs to be done there. But man, it's not like an easy thing to just go in there and crush out big returns, or to even just run a business with a lot of people. So I think that there'll be other ways to get Bitcoin in Canada, but definitely one of the more popular methods being turned off for lack of use is probably not the best news. So I don't know. I think that hopefully the good part of it is it speaks to how useful the payment network in and of itself is, and then I don't know, interacting with KYC and AML and traditional payment methods, I think kind of hamstrings companies, and it's tough to know what to say about it in the long run, except for that Bitcoin continues to be rad, and other systems continue to have problems.
We could always smuggle Bitcoin into Canada in the seats of our cars. Theo Goodman.
It's like, don't say that.
It's just another bump on the road in Canada, where there's lots of strange animals like moose and other things. And, the other exchanges are there. People will figure out ways to buy Bitcoin. I don't see it as a big issue. And I think that even Coinbase came back and said there are ways to use their service. After all, it's just, I forgot the name of how you do it, but it's just more hampering. So for the time being, I think they're not going to do Canadian dollars, but it seems that it's just more inconvenient for you to use Coinbase from Canada right now. And yeah, they have Kraken, they got Quadrex, so there's other options.
So many moose. Visit the lovely lakes. Gabriel D. Vine.
Okay, I got some things to say, those northerners don't know what they're doing, and no, I don't think this is really. I agree with Theo. It's not really that relevant. I think Coinbase actually, as a company, might be getting a bit less relevant. I know it's an easy on ramp, but they have more competitors now, and this could definitely hurt Coinbase a bit. Not sure what kind of future they have. I mean, of course, all on ramp style businesses, I think, have a not a very good future ahead of them, but in the long term. But medium and short term, I think they do have a good future. So I don't think this is that important of a move. It's more of a fiat company anyways, so who cares?
In the show comments the other day, somebody said they were going to make a meme of Gabriel and Tone with the giant words underneath. It doesn't matter.
Derek J. Freeman.
Yeah, it's sad for some of the customers in Canada who will now have a more difficult time acquiring some Bitcoin. But I think the lesson for everyone here is no matter where you live, if you're someone who buys Bitcoin regularly, find multiple streams that you can get Bitcoin, especially learn how to use local Bitcoins. You know, a lot of Bitcoins are transacted there. It's not always through the website itself. It can be peer-to-peer, you know, in person without them taking a cut. And so, you know, it's not an advertisement, but just look at lots of different ways that you can get Bitcoin if that's what you want. Don't depend on one company.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, or all your Bitcoin either.
Derek gets
Tone
lots of
Bays.
Bitcoin for shilling for local Bitcoins. That's where he gets his income stream.
Yeah, I'm gonna pretty much second Gabe, and but I'm gonna take it in a slightly different direction. Everyone's been commenting on how, I mean, I'm not very familiar with that company, but from what I just read, they were more of a payment processor, and this just goes to show that Bitcoin isn't really very much used right now to kind of buy stuff, right? When Andreas was talking about he's introducing people to Bitcoin, and everyone has this, you know. It's like gets into their head and they're like, oh my God. And the first thing they want to do is they want to just go and talk to every business that they know to try and get them to accept Bitcoin. And no one really does. I mean, I have a business. I have a physical brick and mortar. I've been accepting Bitcoin for 3 years. Anybody want to take a guess how many customers I've had in 3 years that showed up and paid with Bitcoin?
4.
0 is the correct answer. And
I was trying to be
at this
conservative
point,
with my one.
yeah, and honestly, at this point, if someone showed up and offered to pay in Bitcoin, I don't think they're going to be able to. I don't think anyone that works there still knows what the hell it is, because I'm almost never there, and it really doesn't make sense for me to like reteach employees every 3 months on how to accept Bitcoin if no one's going to come in and use it. So, and Coinbase is going to have this problem too. I'm not even sure how long they're going to be around. It's not really designed for that right now, and we don't have that many users, and no one is like breaking down the door to use Bitcoin in traditional ways when you have credit cards and you still have cash. And this goes back to the block size debate. It's just not really being used for that. On the flip side, I'm hearing stories when people need to use the Bitcoin ATM machine and the store that the ATM machine happens to have just closed, they will literally offer any amount of money to let them through the door. Like somebody said they got an offer of $100 just so somebody can use the Bitcoin ATM. And these are the people that will be willing to pay an enormous amount of fees to get into the next block. It's not really just being used for day-to-day use, because in the first world, there's plenty of other options. I'm kind of happy Bitcoin is in this niche right now. It's not too popular. It's not, and is being useful so that you don't have the some of the issues that come with trying to process 500 transactions a second. So I'm kind of not surprised that these payment processors are going under. They just don't have the business yet. We'll get there. It'll just take a little longer than everybody expected.
It sounds like a real chicken and the egg problem. How are we going to get any more chickens now that we ran all out of eggs? Will Payment.
Well, anywhere that Bitcoin's privacy capabilities, its inherent traits conflict with the existing model of doing business in a particular region, there's going to be problems. There's going to be pinch points, choke points, and they're going to be exercised. And people are going to feel that pain on either side, both before the choking and after. And I think there's a lesson there, and it is, I think the patience shown by, I've not really stood up for either side in the block debate, but I do think that I wish people were attacking arguments more than groups or people. And the people at core who definitely care about privacy are getting criticized a great deal for moving very slowly on some proposed advancements or upgrades of Bitcoin that certain people really are loud about wanting. And I just want to commend people like Gregory Maxwell and Dr. Back and Peter Wolla and Vladimir and all of them, Matt Corallo. I know I said a lot of names of Blockstream employees there, but I'm thinking of these guys, Eric Lombroso, I can't forget him. They're being incredibly careful about not making the same mistakes that were made in the early days of writing the internet protocols. And I think that's why we're seeing companies like Vogogo or Coinbase, have to adjust their strategies in a certain region for a time being. And there's still places to get Bitcoin in Canada. And yeah, it's a bump in the road, but we need to. This should show us that we have a really important opportunity here to get something right, and to keep the private answer. The answer is not private. It's to develop Bitcoin with the inherent traits that it has preserved.
All right, Andreas Antonopoulos.
I think it's interesting. One of the things that no one has talked about yet is having worked in Canada, and I was recently in Toronto again, and I've talked to quite a few Canadian banks and looked at the attitudes they have there. I think people who are not in Canada or look at it from the American perspective miss the fact that Canadian banks are not as corrupt, greedy, coddled, overregulated, and gangsterish as American banks. And that was reflected during the 2008 crisis when they weren't caught with huge derivative exposure and real estate exposure, and they didn't have to be bailed out in the same way, and they don't usually get caught up in horrible scandals. That also means they're more lightly regulated. The Canadian government is much more friendly towards cryptocurrencies. And Canada has a very large number of ATMs, as well as a very large number of banks that are very interested in this. So Vogogo's out the window, great. I think the interesting thing is that what might step in is a major Canadian bank to offer the kind of checking and wire transfer and ACH clearing services that Coinbase needs directly through the traditional banking system without an intermediary, directly through a major bank, because it would give them an opportunity to get in, which they're trying to do. They're actually very interested in Bitcoin in a way that's comfortable to regulators, with a company that has many banks as investors and is quite heavily regulated in the U.S. So that's what I'm expecting. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a major Canadian bank stepping in to fill that void. It won't be left open for very long. Canada is a thriving space for Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with retail, has nothing to do with merchant services. It has everything to do with investment opportunities and overcoming barriers towards cross-border transfers for import-export businesses, for remittance businesses, and things like that.
Excellent. Moving on to the next topic. Be kind and get kind bars. Now on sale for Bitcoin at purse.io. Kind bars are all natural with no genetically modified organisms, with low sodium, no trans fat, and only 5 grams of sugar. Eat healthy, save money, and spend Bitcoin at purse.io. Issue 3. Uber, Argentina. Argentina is refusing to allow Uber, denying them a tax ID, blocking them with multiple city injunctions, and stopping them from accepting local credit cards. But Uber finds a way. Uber partnered with Zappo this week to accept Bitcoin and Zappo debit cards, allowing the company to continue to operate in Argentina. Capitalism at its best? Or is Uber a rogue pirate company that ignores all local laws and customs like an invading alien species? Theo Goodman.
I'm going to have to go with that it is rogue and alien invading species, definitely. Okay, well, do you even reg arb, bro? This is just regulation arbitrage in multiple ways. The credit Zappo is like, okay, well, if we have like offshore credit card thing and we can, get around this law and we got the Bitcoin, mix it all in. This is really cool, and I think this is the kind of stuff that we're going to see more and more, and as things go around. Yeah, of course, there's initial resistance to Uber. I mean, okay, let's say you're a cab driver, and suddenly oh shit, there's this like big competitor and your union can't really help you, I mean, you're probably going to be pretty pissed off. But I'm not against competition. I can see there's going to be hostility for a while until I don't know until what happens, but that's going to really disrupt that whole taxi market for now. And I think this is just showing how people can use regulatory arbitrage to do things.
I'm not going to say that Uber's like the Borg, but they do never stop, and resistance does seem to be futile. Gabriel D. Vine.
I think you're absolutely right about the Borg resemblance as far as how difficult it is to fight an Uber. And keep in mind that the sharing economy is really just the first foray into corporate individuality, corporate sovereignty, so to speak, where software, digital corporations become so powerful and unstoppable that governments have literally no chance at all to get in their way. They can pass laws, and basically they're just going to end up in court fighting companies that could actually be giving them tax revenue. So I think it's a typical situation where you have technology causing government to spin its wheels, waste its time, attempt to draw off wealth unsuccessfully before finally buckling. And I think this problem for governments has been getting a lot worse in the past 3 to 4 years, and this is just the beginning. These are centralized companies. Here on the show, everybody's familiar, and a lot of our watchers, hello out there, are familiar, and of course posterity, they're going to be extremely familiar with DAOs and other ways to automate the business processes in order to create decentralized alternatives. So Uber is just the first step where they're only using the raw technology. Once we also decentralize the corporate governance structure as well as the money, then it'll be completely and utterly impossible. It's already extremely difficult / impossible. This is just a trend, a tidal wave, of which we're just feeling the very first swells.
At least Uber has one face that you can negotiate with. The problem with a DAO is it has many faces. Derek J. Freeman.
Yeah, so at the bottom of the story, it's about people who want rides and people who want to give them rides, meeting together and giving each other what they want. And so if Bitcoin helps make that possible in Argentina, that's something I'm going to celebrate. There's an expression that legal loopholes are where the freedom peeps through. And so I absolutely see this as an application of that expression. It's sad that Uber has left places, unlike an invading alien species. For example, Austin. Uber and Lyft both left after the city council and local governments made it unbearable for them to provide rides for people. But then we saw the advent of other ride-sharing opportunities like Arcade City, which has taken Austin by storm and many other places where Uber is outlawed. So this is people who want rides and want to give them are going to meet each other no matter what governments or companies try and do to stop that.
It's a good point, Derek. The Austin situation is very interesting for these ride-sharing companies. In the absence of Uber and Lyft, smaller companies have been able to come in and actually compete against each other, refine their services, improve, and perhaps take that win out of there and compete with Uber and Lyft in other markets. It will be interesting to see, but of course, the auto-driving car is right out there waiting. So all of this discussion ends when one of these companies gets the self-driving car. Tone Vase.
Yeah, it's unfortunate every time some government or some city is banning Uber, and I'm completely anti-union, and I mean, it's not up to the government. I mean, it's mostly the taxi cab unions or the bribes that go to governments from taxi cab drivers in order to get something like Uber out of town. Latest statistics are coming in. Uber is now able to prove that they reduce accidents, they reduce drunk driving incidents, they reduce mortality rates in cities. So that's going to go a long way, and I think Uber will be coming back to a lot of these cities that have been very resistant. As for the specific case of Argentina, I mean, it's nice. I mean, it's good. It puts Bitcoin back in the national news. It actually puts Zappo in the national news. Because of this, I'm actually going to be, again, I'm always the contrarian on any show. This might be, it might be all fun and games right now, and it's good for Zappo to get the publicity, but Zappo has been very, very under the radar. I know U.S. citizens can't get a Zappo card, but everybody else can, and they have that Visa logo, and guess what? There's one phone call away when Visa says, you know what, you're not allowed to use the Visa logo on your card. So basically, Zappo, in my opinion, is just one phone call away between the government and Visa from not being able to provide that service to anybody in the world. So Zappo really, I mean, I'm sure I'm not exactly sure how that works, but MasterCard and Visa, they do have, I mean, it's their logo. They can choose which companies can and can't use it. So this could be a bit of an issue for them if it does start to make national news, and a lot of the big governments aren't happy, and then they go to Visa and complain about it. So we'll see how it ends. There's really nothing stopping Uber from accepting Bitcoin directly. I don't think it would be that difficult of an integration. So that's what I would like to see in the future. It would actually save Uber money, no credit card fees. I've taken cabs on Uber that cost me like less than $2. That can be very convenient from a credit card usage and fee perspective. So I would like to see them to start to integrate Bitcoin directly and give the driver an option to receive Bitcoin. I'm sure all the drivers in Argentina will.
It's a good point, Tone. And the reason they might have gone with Zappo could be this debit card. Uber may still be thinking that people need a debit card. People aren't ready with their Bitcoin wallets just yet.
Well, Thomas, it's not that they gone with Zappo. It's just that Zappo is like a credit card. It's not that they went with it. There was nothing preventing people from sticking their Zappo credit card number into the Uber app, right? So I don't think Uber had to do anything. It's like they just realized, oh, wait a minute, why is the usage of this particular credit card going up? And then it just made the news. I don't think Uber did a single line of code change for this. It just happened to just work out because if you have a Zappo card, you just throw it right into the Uber app. Uber thinks it's another credit card, but again, it makes me a little nervous. What is stopping Visa from calling Zappo and say you guys are done? I don't know what kind of deal they have, if there's a contract or not. I really should talk to Dave, the CEO of Zappo, about that, mostly because I'm just really curious.
Well, let's hope that Zappo keeps their phone number unlisted. Will Pangman.
So I think we'll see more things like this. More companies temporarily or permanently turning to Bitcoin as a patchwork solution for some pinch points problems that they're having with payments and stuff. Capital controls, currency controls, negative interest rates, bail-ins, these are all a reality in our world. They've been a reality in different parts, and there's talk about them in Western world. So we'll see more of that, and great, that's good. But yeah, two thoughts about it that leave me a little bit of pause. Great that Zappo was there to kind of catch this right in their laps. And I agree with Tone. I doubt that there was much of a code upgrade or change at all needed on the Uber side. But I wonder how many Argentinians are able to access Bitcoin, period, or even Uber. I mean, I guess I need to defer to one of the more well-traveled folks who, maybe Andreas, who happens to be next. So I'm doubtful that this is actually going to reach more people because I'm not sure that Argentinians, by and large, are able to use the service.
That's a good point, Will. I'm not sure how many of us here have been to Argentina, but perhaps Andreas has. Andreas?
Yeah, I've been to Argentina twice, and I can tell you this is a giant pile of bullcrap stinking to high heaven. What a glorious example of journalism. Just absolutely appalling. Uber is not taking Bitcoin. It's a joke. Uber can be used through the Zappo Visa card. Nothing changed. They simply put a Visa card into an Uber app. Who did this? Probably no one. Maybe one person. I doubt there's probably more than a dozen people in the whole of Argentina who have a Zappo card, and there's a few more who actually have Bitcoin. So this was turned into a giant announcement to like, oh, look, celebrate the new sharing economy now includes Bitcoin and it's all peer-to-peer, and we're sticking it to the Argentinian government. Please. Stop pandering to the bloody audience. This is ridiculous. Okay, not only am I going to piss on the parade of the fact that this is not news, I'm going to go one level deeper and say, what are we celebrating exactly here? The fact that we're using Visa as the rails? Or the fact that we're enabling Uber, which is the Goldman Sachs of taxi companies, a company that doesn't really do ride sharing, a company whose primary product is financialization, a company that is doing subprime loans in collaboration with Goldman Sachs so they can lock in their drivers, that has taken billions of dollars and converted them into a shitty app, shitty rates for their drivers, appalling behavior in the marketplace, appalling behavior towards their passengers and their drivers, arrogance and dirty tactics that we've seen repeatedly in lawsuits involving Uber, and just swagger all over the place to really be kind of the people's rideshare. Bullshit. Goldman Sachs of taxis. And I'm not going to celebrate the fact that they also added Visa to their giant parade of financialization to overcome these things. You know what? At the end of the day, there's only one thing that's worse than Uber, and that's the regulated licensed taxi business that sucks even more. And the only reason we take Uber is because the taxi business has become so appallingly bad all over the world. Now, if you really want to applaud something, let's build a really decentralized rideshare that cuts out the middleman and really uses Bitcoin to offer decentralization of payment, which leads to decentralization of service, and then you don't need a company sitting in the middle like a vampire squid sucking 30% off some of the poorest immigrant drivers who don't bloody deserve it.
Well, let me be the first and perhaps only one to say, hooray for Visa, Blake Anderson.
Well, I think this is a very, very good position for me to have because, I didn't have to put a foot in my mouth. Andreas went on his, very, very well-stated rant, and I agreed with a lot of what he said, so now I don't have to praise this. No, actually, the entire time I was thinking about coming at this from the angle of what Andreas said about Canada was basically kind of boils down to, in my view, that they don't have as many reasons to hate their banks and to love Bitcoin as maybe we do here. So if you look at the silver lining of when people do stuff that makes it hard to, have anything anywhere, I guess the silver lining is that, without any resistance, people get weak and flabby, but with lots of resistance, people galvanize, they create technology hydras, they take action to defend what they want in the face of adversity, and when people don't have that, they generally don't. So I think that the silver line that we can take from any of this is, maybe not that, Visa's getting involved in stuff like that, but the more resistance that Bitcoin meets, it is the honey badger. Honey badger doesn't care. It keeps getting stronger and stronger and coming up with more solutions. So I think that it's interesting to note that all this stuff happening seems really shitty and like a big hurdle or like a big roadblock, but conquering those makes everything stronger in the process.
Exit question. Argentina will eventually allow Uber.
Oh, hey, Thomas.
Yeah, you want to go?
Sorry, I was gonna push back on Andreas a little bit. You were very, very critical of Uber. I mean, look, we all know Uber's not perfect, but I would not put them that close to the taxi cab companies. I mean, everyone on the show would agree that Uber is better than the taxi cabs.
I use them all the time. I agree with you too, but I mean, I'm not going to celebrate the vampire squid of taxis. We need to replace them with a choice.
I actually do. I mean, I've been traveling a lot lately, and I am very frustrated whenever I go to a city or a country and Uber is not there versus when Uber is there. I mean, I'm afraid to take a taxi from the airport because they screw you. They literally scam you. They will put, that you have 4 pieces of luggage. They will put in you have 4 people in your car when it's just 1 person. I mean, the first thing I do when I get off the plane is I check if Uber is there. I actually do. I'm very happy that they exist. I think we're still further away from a decentralized Uber at the moment. But I think we're still kind of far away from that. And I definitely give Uber a lot more credit for doing what they do. And yes, the quality of service is going down, but the prices are also pretty cheap. And I don't know, start ordering Uber Black and pay more. I'm sure it'll be better service. I mean, it gives you plenty of options. I'm actually pretty happy with Uber.
Hey, Tone, I've been scammed by taxi drivers in every country I've visited in my life, and that's 39 countries and counting. In every single one, I've been scammed at the airport by taxi drivers, so I agree with you. But to me, it's not Uber that's great, it's rideshare that's great. And rideshare has a lot of other great companies. Lyft treats their drivers better, and treats their markets better, and treats their customers better, and has a better app. Cabify, which is throughout Latin America, treats their drivers better, has a better app and better service. And I'll tell you what, I love Uber drivers. I love the service I get from Uber, and I very much enjoy using the service. What I don't like is how Uber themselves treat their own drivers and the company itself. That's very different from not liking rideshare. Love rideshare.
Yeah, no, that might be true, but
Other
also you
companies
got.
in a marketplace where competition allows me to use my choice to improve their behavior.
Yeah, but also like one of the reasons why Uber it is perhaps again I don't want to make excuses for Uber and I'm just speculating here, but Uber is also the one in court fighting for all of this, right? So they do have the most overhead than all these other smaller companies that might be that might not have the kind of overhead that Uber does. I mean, look at California. Uber is literally fighting in court to prevent 100,000 people from becoming full-time employees, which will basically make Uber go bankrupt. So, I mean, you might see them as like the vampire squid in Goldman Sachs.
I don't know, though. I mean, I think that might be an attack vector for regulatory capture, which definitely wouldn't be a good thing. And I think I understand what Andreas and Tone are saying. Tone is saying, I like the technological limit of me interacting with the phone and then the car coming to get me so that they can't fuck me around. And then I think that what Andreas is saying, let's take that technology, get rid of the squid, and then everybody will be much happier.
And just to raise Andreas's point once again, I don't have the exact figures with me, but the loans that Uber is offering to their drivers are incredibly unfair. It's a new type of company where they're now offering car loans in addition to their additional services, so it has become very complex.
I want to say something about this too. That the subprime loan thing, subprime auto loans that Uber is giving out is strictly to lock in their drivers. And if you want a loan or you want a vehicle to drive for Uber or Lyft, there are companies out there that allow this and will not lock you in. You can rent to own the vehicle and drop it off with 7 days notice. A good company I know of is workcar.com. So if you don't want to do the Uber loan, you don't have to. And I hope more and more people find out about these other providers so that these lock-in subprime loans can stop destroying lives.
The Uber loans do seem a bit like indentured servitude. You can keep the car just as long as you keep working for the company, and you can never stop working for the company, so you have to keep the car. But moving on to the exit question. Argentina will eventually allow Uber. Yes or no? Theo Goodman.
Yes, they will. And now that we know that it's such a big company and it's really evil, then yeah, sure, of course they will.
Evil always wins. Gabriel D. Vine.
That's kind of irrelevant and dependent on bribes.
I'm sure they can get a pallet full of hundreds over there quick. Derek J.
Yeah, of course it is irrelevant. People are going to find ways to get the rides that they need. But yeah, I believe that Argentina will eventually do the right thing and allow business to continue.
Apologies, we seem to have lost Tone Vase. He's in Odessa, Ukraine. Will Pangman.
Ride sharing wins in Argentina and everywhere else.
Andreas Antonopoulos.
Yeah, of course they will. And I'd be interested to see if Cabify operates in Argentina. It's a fantastic service that I used in Peru, and I think it operates also in Brazil. Much better application and focused on the Latin American market. There's a lot of interesting competition in this space.
Blake Anderson.
Well, on a long enough timeline, the survival rate of the state goes to zero. So, after that, there'll be nothing to stop it, right?
The answer is yes. Argentina will eventually allow Uber. It is unstoppable. Mouse is going everywhere. Moving on, issue 4. Startups claim to de-anonymize Bitcoin to fight crime. See, this is why we can't have nice things. Claiming to fight child porn, the startup called Elliptic has partnered with the Internet Watch Foundation to track the movement of funds to this and other illicit activities. The site plans to use publicly available Bitcoin addresses and vanity addresses as their first step towards ending Bitcoin privacy. Will it succeed, and should it be done? Gabriel D. Vine.
I'd like to call out this chump, Daniel Cooper. He's obviously a mainstream media shill, ending his article with this very companies are now boasting that Bitcoin is no longer anonymous, could deliver a fatal blow to the cryptocurrency. Complete and utter trash and bullshit. People who know anything about Bitcoin are in the know. They know that it's not completely anonymous. Christoph has written an ebook called Anonymous Bitcoin, detailing the many and complex steps that are required in order to be anonymous. And in fact, this is a big challenge for Bitcoin, that it's not anonymous, and it's a well-known fact that it affects the fungibility. It's one of the weaker parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem that's currently being worked on, second only to scaling. So I think that this is a very suspect article with a completely opinionated slant. And I'm going to say that it's going to be a race between these companies and the anonymizers, and I'm pretty sure that the anonymizing aspects of Bitcoin are going to win. Cryptography is always going to be stronger than the hackers when it comes to something as useful as a cryptocurrency, in my opinion.
Derek J. Freeman.
These people are hilarious. I mean, good for them. I hope that they make a million bitcoins, scamming governments and law enforcement agencies, telling them that they can identify people who spend Bitcoin, because they can't. And they better be watching what's going on with Dash and Zcash if they think that they can, because it's only a matter of time before people who want to be truly anonymous really can be. And so I wouldn't have a problem with this in principle, knowing where money is going. I certainly wouldn't want to give my money, even in a voluntary exchange, to somebody who I knew was going to do evil, for example, a murderer. But if it's someone who wants to gamble on a website, play poker, or buy drugs, that's none of my business, and I'd rather stay out of it. So to me, this company is not doing something inherently immoral. If they are successful, I don't think that it will be to anyone's detriment who really wants to be anonymous and takes the time to do it.
Will Penguin.
Yeah, I definitely think what Elliptic and the other blockchain analysis companies are doing should be done, because that's how we're going to harden the system for privacy and security. We need that. It's so crucial, these attacks.
Like that resistance I was talking about before, it makes you stronger.
Absolutely. So yes, it should be done. Anyone out there, you have your opinion and vocalize it, but please welcome the attack. Welcome the attack. Will it succeed? I think, yes, there will be some kind of a seesaw relationship between the traceability and the anonymity abilities of Bitcoin. And that'll be good. We need that as we're going to harden the system. And I do think that ultimately the option for privacy will be always available. And I do think it won't require the amount of effort it does today. It will require much less effort, and hopefully will be a feature by default. And identifying yourself should be an opt-in process, like it always has been with this this technology.
Andreas Antonopoulos.
Well, I mean, if the process continues like this, what happens over time in a decentralized system is that more and more avenues are open for people who want to achieve very strong privacy and anonymity, at which point the companies that are doing broad surveillance of this type are left surveilling only the innocent and the idiots, the people who didn't figure out how to use the anonymous functions, and the people who have absolutely nothing to hide because they're doing nothing. That's a system that collapses under its own inability to scale on cost basis because it doesn't achieve any results other than the broad surveillance of populations. So Bitcoin makes it very difficult to do broad surveillance of populations, but actually it makes it quite easy to do targeted investigations of individuals based upon probable cause and due process. And that's done using straightforward traditional investigatory mechanisms like seizing a server and flipping a witness or an insider. And then all of the information that investigators might need is forensically encoded indelibly on the blockchain, allowing them to prosecute their case with ease. And as a society, we want that. We've decided that is a good basis on which to have justice. Particularized suspicion and support with warrants should be a good basis to offer up the privacy of that person. And we should not have broad-based surveillance absent of that particularized suspicion. So Bitcoin strikes exactly the balance that is encoded in our Constitution. Most law enforcement professionals actually appreciate that, and they understand that it's a useful tool because it gives them a forensic trail. And all of the companies that are trying to do broad-based surveillance are going to waste a lot of money and become less and less and less effective over time. So, but that's fine. As I think Will said it very well, we need these attacks in order to strengthen the immunity of the system.
I wanted to say one more thing too. The guys always bring up. I always hear it brought up, this like child porn as the reason all the time, right? This has got to be like the biggest distraction, the biggest like hokey. I mean, here I am defending privacy, and I'm thinking back on what I said, thinking, the question had to. I mean, these guys are doing this to like what? Cramp down on child porn, which I don't know. It just strikes me that this is just such a red herring, a complete distraction of what is really, like, you say it so that you can get cover to go and do your other, I don't know, undesirable surveilling activities. I don't know.
It's the sliding scale. It starts with terrorism, then we're doing it for the children, it's child porn, then it's money laundering, then it's gambling, then it's infidelity, then it's parking tickets, then it's music piracy. And before you know it, you're using SWAT teams and the NSA to track down music pirates, which is exactly how the sliding slippery slope works every bloody time. They open the door with terrorism, and then they just push and push and push to expand until the most extreme measures are used for the most trivial offenses, fairly cementing a three-tier justice system in which there's complete immunity at the top, jail and isolation in the middle for minor offenses, and a summary execution by cop at the bottom. The bottom line is that this type of sliding scale is used on a gullible public that is terrified of these phantoms of horror and danger lurking around every corner. The truth is that these things are less and less prevalent in society, and the rate of these crimes is going down.
Now, earlier Andrea said something nice about the government. I wanted to give Derek J. a chance for the libertarian response. Derek, do you have anything?
Well, I just didn't appreciate, and of course I love Andreas, but I don't appreciate being spoken for when he says we as a society agreed to this and we think this is justice. I don't, and so I just wanted to make that clear that not everyone agrees. I didn't sign the Constitution, and in fact, no one who is alive had any part in signing it. So,
that's a fair comment. Absolutely, I think I was simply expressing what I think the social contract is, which is not being signed, but certainly is accepted by many people. But you're absolutely right. You didn't sign it.
Andreas also mentioned that we could only protect the innocent and the idiots, two groups I keep having a hard time joining. Blake Anderson.
Did we already hear from Theo?
Theo's next. In my order here, I've got Theo next.
I keep trying to mess with the order. I'm an authoritarian, and I'm going to get my way eventually. So what were we talking about again? I don't even know what we're talking about right now.
Child porn and Bitcoin, like peanut butter and jelly.
It's funny that censorship in Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, you can do forensic analysis on specific people, but trying to just go and get as much information as you can based on new addresses for every transaction and technology like that. I mean, it's just like a circle growing outwards at all times. So just generalistic analysis is not something that I'm too worried about. Specific people that are really having their stuff watched, yeah, maybe there's more risk there, but I'm not worried as of yet, just because the scope of what they would have to do without knowing your customer and anti-money laundering stuff and having one person for one account. I mean, that seems like a really, really, really tall order. Maybe they have technologies that I'm not aware of that can help with that. Maybe I should be more worried, but that's my my stance on it right now anyway.
Well, you've got to consider also that Elliptic is based in London, so if they get the twin lists of all the Bitcoin addresses of British members of Parliament and BBC entertainers, plus all of the Bitcoin addresses of the Vatican, they've pretty much solved the child porn problem.
Ooh, I'm not touching that one. Theo Goodman.
Oh my, after all that. Not sure what to say, but I'm gonna go back. I like what Derek had to say in the sense of, yeah, congratulations to whatever startup that got the government or Homeland Security in your sales funnel. Good job on that one. High five. And also in the article, it says, unfortunately for Bitcoin, these companies have shown that most transactions come from the dark web and are involved with gambling. And I say, yeah, unfortunately for you, you don't know what the hell's going on. That means that it's actually being used for things that are useful and people want to do that they can't do. So that's just total garbage. And I also totally agree with Will. Bring it on. Bring it on. Let's rumble.
And it's always fun to quote Andreas when we have Andreas here, but I remember you saying once that if your currency can't buy drugs or can't buy pornography or hookers, what good is it? And I think the same thing here. Bitcoin is good money. You can buy anything.
I think the exact quote, just because I didn't say what good it is, I said if you can't buy those things, then arguably it's not money.
Very good. And we're going to end the formal part of the show and move on kind of towards prediction or story of the week. And I was also going to say this week, as it is our 100th episode, perhaps if you have a memory or a high point or something that you really liked about the show that you want to share. I was thinking as the episode started, I thought about one of the first episodes that we had Andreas on. We didn't know each other very well. We were just starting out the show. And Andreas kind of went off on a rant, and he kind of took down the banks, and he said a bunch of stuff. And after the show ended, he was like, Thomas, are you going to edit any of that? And I was like, no, like, did we mess up? Did we stutter or anything? He's like, no, you're going to leave it all in, all the stuff about the bank. And I was like, yes, of course, I'm going to leave it all in. And we were great friends ever since then. I thought it was just a great starting point. So we'll just go down the line, Andreas, if you just have a story of the week, something you want to talk about, or maybe a memory about the show, just something to say.
As usual, I think there is a lot of emphasis on drama and speculation and price, and sometimes we miss the really important technical milestones. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen the introduction by soft fork of check sequence verify, the first use of BIP9 version bits, parallel activation of soft forks, the merging of segregated witness into core for immediate deployment, the deployment of 2 more Lightning Network solutions, including an overlay routing network, the deployment of a UDP-based high-speed, low-latency relay network for blocks, and introductions of several other features, and we're about to go into a robotically and programmatically preconditioned halving that was planned 8 years ago and is going to go off right on time without any problems, and once again, the code is doing what it should do, and Bitcoin is not dead. 8 years.
Awesome. And I just wanted to say there's about 125 people watching. Maybe you haven't watched the show before. It'd be great if you want to just subscribe to the World Crypto Network. We do a lot of shows like this. We have obviously 99 old episodes of the Bitcoin group if you want to go back and watch them. We also have a lot of other great shows done by other people who are all big fans of Bitcoin, big fans of this technology, and we just want to talk about it and discuss it and make it better. Blake Anderson.
Well, one of my favorite memories with the Bitcoin group, I think the first episode that I was ever on was when I was speaking at Bitcoin in the Beltway, and that was, if you guys remember, that was the conference or the speech that we were all encouraged, don't pull any punches. Like we want to come out and really illustrate the value of Bitcoin versus legacy systems. That was an amazing trip. It was an amazing opportunity to speak. Thanks to Jason King and Megan Lords for setting that all up. I think it was one of the best conferences that I'd ever been to. And meeting all you guys there was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. I can say that unequivocally, outside of my family, getting married and having kids, that was pretty great. And then another one of my favorite memories was going to visit Thomas at his house, and he and his brother gave me this shirt that says "Department of Awesome," and that's truly indicative of, who and what Thomas and his brother are. They are the Department of Awesome, and they welcomed me into it as well. So, you guys are my best friends, and I love you all with all my heart, and that's my mushy thing that I want to say.
Oh, thank you, Blake. Very kind. Theo Goodman.
I think my favorite part is when I can't hit the mute button on time, and then everyone in the comments says that I'm really slow and complains that I'm reading from teleprompters and stuff like that. Because that's how I do it. That's how I roll. Everyone, I'm coming out here on the 100th episode. I've been reading from a teleprompter the whole time. No, I think that I don't have any. I remember that episode, like, that you're talking about, and you guys were trying to do a hangout, like, all in the same room, and the mics didn't work at the beginning. That was really kind of funny. You were like feedbacking each other on the same table. That's a pretty cool memory. That was actually really kind of cool to try to do it like that, because it was really off the top of my head, off the top of your guys' heads. But no, I don't really have a specific memory. Just just everyone. Actually, it's just everyone asking about a Bitcoin group. Hey, Theo, is there a Bitcoin group tonight? Is there a Bitcoin group tonight? You'd be surprised to get like these little messages. Is there one? Why isn't there one? What's going on? Why isn't there one? Where's Thomas? So all those like little memories like that actually is what I remember a lot. I don't really have. Let's see. Last week, my story of the week was Wayne Chain. That's still the story of the week. Check out waynechain.com, blockchain solutions that solves all possible problems you could ever think of, Wayne Chain. And for my prediction, I think I agree with what's been said so far. Bitcoin is not going to die. The code is going to work, and that's what we're witnessing right here when the block reward is cut in half.
I do have a brief memory about Theo. Theo has such a deadpan sense of humor that only I and a few other people really get it. And a couple of episodes, Theo has just walked it out there so far on the line about how he loves cloud mining, or how he thinks scrolly, pumpy web pages are awesome. And people just go with it, and they're like, Theo, how can you say that? Or Tom, how can you allow Theo to say those crazy things? And just this deadpan humor. He just sticks with it to the end. I just think it's great.
I have to agree. I love Theo. He's so funny, and he is so good at the deadpan. Because a lot of people they don't know if they have the cognitive capacity to understand how funny it is. And my attorney is my really good friend too, and he's the same way. And nobody can ever tell if he's joking. And he says the most outlandish shit ever. It's just
I was recently accused of talking shit about Ethereum and then switching and being a DAO pumper. So I don't know how that happened. I don't know what exactly I said, but somehow.
You're like, where did my sarcasm get me into this trap? Where was I so sarcastic that people actually believe this? You got to try to trace it back.
It's an incredible amount of sarcasm. Gabriel D. Vine.
Well, I have stories of the week. My first story is obviously the Bitcoin price was just pumped 1% because of our show number 100. So that's one story. It's obvious, linear relationship between the and the Bitcoin price. But my second story is, of course, my personal story with the Bitcoin group. This is a really, really special show. It was the first show to come online that I'm aware of that had some very informed voices for high-level discussions of complex issues having to do with Bitcoin and other things in the technology space. And it was just so incredible and so impactful to see Andreas and you, Thomas, Blake, and Theo and Chris Ellis, and of course Derek and Christoph and Will coming in and providing this forum for information and for ideas that was just at such a more sophisticated level than anything you could ever get in the stupid sound bites that you get in mainstream media. It was just such a landmark, and I'm really honored to be part of it now after watching for literally more than a year, I believe it was, and now I can finally open. Instead of yelling at my shower or whatever it was, and saying, why didn't anybody mention X, Y, and and they didn't say Z. So it's a wonderful time, and I'm so glad to be able to share my stupid ideas with everybody out there, and to participate in this wonderful thing that still, as far as I'm aware, there's a lot of podcasts out there, but none of them really has the same back and forth character and panel discussion style that the Bitcoin group still represents. So I'm really, really stoked that and proud to be part of it, and really grateful to Thomas for putting this together and being so dedicated as the host for 100 episodes. Cheers.
Thank you, Gabe. Very kind, very kind. Derek J.
My favorite Bitcoin group memory is this right here, and I hope you can see that I'm sharing my screen. It is Thomas, Chris Ellis, me, Davi, Blake, Will, and MK Lords at PorkFest doing a live episode together. That was one of the happiest times for me. And so the story of the week, really, I think everyone's talking about the Halvening, but I think the story is the 100th Bitcoin group episode. And you, Thomas, thank you. I mean, you are providing, the listeners of this show already know what an excellent service you're providing with the variety of comments about what's going on in the world of Bitcoin news. But what I think you're really doing, the greatest value you're providing, is the record for future generations who are going to see and learn from the comments that we've made in the past, and perhaps our stupidity or wisdom. So thank you for 100 episodes, Thomas.
Thank you, Derek. It's really kind. And I just want to thank all the other panelists who can't be here. A couple of guys have mentioned them, but I just don't want to forget them. Christoph Atlas, very important to the show. MK Lords, very important to the show. And everyone else, I mean, we're probably going to forget your name right now, but if we forgot you, we appreciate Chris Ellis. Our friend Chris Ellis has always been great on the show. He isn't doing too well these days. It's unfortunate he wasn't able to make it. Tone Vase dropped off earlier. It's good to have Tone on a lot of great shows, and it's just great to have everybody. Will Penguin.
Yeah, I think for memory, first of all, I just can't help but echo loudly what everyone else said about you, Thomas. I mean, watching Mad Bitcoins every single day was a highlight for me, even as I got to know you. Especially as I got to know you. And of course, the thrill of getting to do a weekly panel show with you has been amazing. All of you guys, I love all you guys so much, and the other panelists who aren't here, and the little family that we have with this panel is wonderful. And yeah, we definitely need to do an in-person reunion as soon as we can again. My favorite memory, I forget which crash it was, but it was a show we did after one of the 2013 crashes. I think it was probably the second one at the end of the year in December. But I remember that there was lots of news that day about people who were looking for friends of theirs on local or on our Bitcoin and BitcoinTalk.org who hadn't heard from them because the price crashed, and there was lots of news about people who chose to end their lives because of Mt. Gox or the crash in general. And I remember just feeling really loved on the show after I shared a comment with the audience that we need all of you out there to foster this technology. And if we want it, we're the only ones who are going to make it. And so we need all of you. All the speculators and everybody, all of them who've ever touched Bitcoin in any way. And I just remember feeling really loved after, I think it was even in the green room after we had gone off the air, and everyone made me feel really loved and accepted after sharing that. And I was scared to kind of do that, and that changed something for me in my Bitcoin career, I guess. As a public speaker, gave me lots more confidence. As a professional, gave me more confidence. And I just want to thank our panel for giving me that. And I don't know. I still want to echo that message that all of you out there, we do need you, and everybody out there is necessary to help us and can have a role. If you are interested, there's work to be done and people who want to work with you. So we're bound to go through some more of these hype cycles, and hopefully none of them nearly as severe as the previous few, because they've all decreased in severity, which is good. But we need all of you, so be smart and stay with us.
It's a good memory, Will, and it's important to remember how far we've come. We've seen Bitcoin at 1,200. We've seen Bitcoin back to 200. We've seen Bitcoin back to almost 800. You know, we've been up, we've been down. A lot of people lost money. If you held, you probably made that money back recently or got close to it. And just, yeah, you need to keep going. You can't get so into one part of the cycle or the other part of the cycle. We all need to keep going.
Hey, Will, did you give away Bitcoin today in the video?
I did, yeah, but I think before I could even mention it, someone swiped it, so good on them, whoever
Right.
it was.
Yeah, so I know who did it, and I know who got it. It's a friend of mine on Telegram, and I have a feeling he's going to use it for some bets on the UFC tonight for gambling. But hey, he got it, and so you guys, hey, yeah, but you guys got to be aware of QR codes. Probably all your Bitcoin freaks can just scan every single code to see if it's a possible private key now.
Good on them, and thanks to Airbits for sending out a little donation there. Very cool. I don't know. My story of the week is basically I've been reading this Neil Stephenson book called Seven Eves. On the very first page, no spoilers, the moon is destroyed. So humanity has 2 years left before the entire planet is wiped out. So we have 2 years to get into space. And I don't want to spoil any more. It's a fantastic book. It's about 1,000 pages. It's really long. I've just been flying through it, and I just think it's fantastic. Seven Eves. Check it out. I don't know. Is there anything else we want to say? Are you guys about ready to end this show, our 100th show? Obviously, anyone watching, please subscribe. It's very cool. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @MadBitcoins. If you want to join the World Crypto Network Slack, maybe you want to make your own shows, send me your email on Twitter, and I'll add you to the Slack. It's like a chat room. Anything else? Anybody? All right. Well, Gabe's got one more chart. It looks like a chart. Chart is not a chart. But we're going to move on, and we're going to end this show so I can go back to work. And that's about it. Until next time, bye-bye.